Okay, so welcome everyone. So our first session is going to be over the biological basis of exercise. And that's just a fancy way of saying we're going to be learning about cells today. So yeah, there's a girl exercising, that's a cell, and then there's minion meme, because I mean, even though it's a boomer minion meme, memes are always good. So here's the overview of the class. So as I said, the week one's going to be over the biological basis of exercise. And this is mostly just going to be about cells and just basic human anatomy and physiology. It's very, very basic. And so next week, we'll be learning about energy systems during exercise. That's a fancy way of saying metabolism. So we'll be learning how do cells obtain energy from food that we eat? And that's a very important concept because obviously when you exercise, you're burning fuel, you're sweating, you're using your fat stores, etc. Week 3, we'll be going over our first exercise physiology session, and that'll be over the muscular and nervous systems. The next week, we'll be covering every other system I didn't cover in week 3. So that's usually circulatory, including your heart, your lungs. Yeah. And so on week 5, we'll be learning about exercise for performance and wellness, fitness. And that's a fancy way of saying athletic training, basically. I'll be teaching you how you can set up a program for running or lifting to best match your goals. And then the last week we'll be covering exercise for healthy living and wellness. So maybe you're not interested in athletics, and that's okay. But even then, exercise is still invaluable for just enjoying your life to the fullest, even if you're not competing in any types of sports. And so the first question I have for you guys is, why do you think we need to learn about cells before we begin to learn about exercise? So like I said, you can chat, you can put your answer in the chat, or you can just unmute and tell me. So yeah, I know the connection may be a little weird at first, but there's no wrong answers in this. I mean, this is science, so there's the right answer, but as long as you can justify it, I'm not gonna get mad at you for saying the wrong answer or something. So just share your thoughts, whatever you have. All right. And that's fine if you don't want to say right now, maybe you don't know a lot about cells and you can't make the connection, that's fine. That's what this class is about. So we are going to revisit this question a bit later. Okay, so the first thing you should know about cells is the basic cell theory. Oh, okay, that's YouTube. That's for the, oh, sorry, my bad. That's the YouTube channel in the chat. Okay, so here are the basic tenets of cell theory. So the first thing you should know is that all living things are made from cells. So plants are living, so they're made from cells. Obviously, we're living, we're made from cells. Fungi are living, they're made from cells. And bacteria and other microbes, they're also living and they're also made from cells. Every living thing you know is a cell, except viruses, but that's beyond the scope of this course. So another tenet of cell theory is that cells are the smallest and most basic units of life. So that basically means there's nothing smaller than a cell that we can consider alive. We can't consider an atom alive. We can't consider a molecule alive. The smallest thing that we can consider alive is a cell. And so the third basic tenet you should know is that all cells come from other cells. So that means cells don't spontaneously appear out of nowhere. All of them come through cell division. As you can see from the photo right here from Amoeba Sisters, they're dividing. And so yeah, the picture up here it looks like an alien at first, but these are actually fat cells. So yeah, I thought those are pretty cool. That's with a really strong microscope, you can get images like that. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, the yellow's fat cells, and then the little stringy things, those are just connective tissue. So yeah, here's a big picture of a cell. Don't worry, we won't be covering everything in here, but I think you should just get a big understanding of what a cell looks like. So this is what an animal cell looks like. So this is what our human cells look like. Yes, you can see the cell membrane, mitochondria, the nucleus, nucleolus, etc. And don't worry, we're going to learn all of this means like right now. But I just wanted you to get like a big view of what a cell looks like before we start diving into the specifics. So everything that's labeled is an organelle. So an organelle, you can think of it as like a small cell organ. So it by itself, an organelle is not alive, but together organelles work together to make human cells function correctly. So the first organelle we're going to cover is the cell membrane. So the cell membrane is also called the plasma membrane. It's your choice what to call it. I personally like calling it the cell membrane, but it really doesn't matter. As long as people understand what you're saying, it's no big. So the cell membrane itself, you see this yellow stuff right here? Those are specialized fats. So most of the cell membrane is specialized fats, but there are also proteins, sugars, and cholesterol that are embedded within the cell membrane. The main layer of fatty acids is called, so yeah, this is important vocab you should know. The cell membrane, the main layer of fatty acids, is called the lipid bilayer. And so the reason it's called the lipid bilayer is because, here, this picture is better. So you see this red thingy right here, and then the red thingy right below it. So one red thingy is a fat molecule, and then the thing below it is also a fat molecule. And so bi is the prefix for two. So you can see that it's a layer of fats, and it's it's a layer of two fats. That's why we call it the lipid bilayer. And so the main function of the cell membrane is that it's semi-permeable. It allows some molecules to stay out of the cell, but it allows some to come in. And that's important because cells want, they want glucose, they want sugar, they want information molecules to come into the cell, but they don't want toxic stuff to come into the cell. They don't want cyanide, but sometimes it's beyond their control. Sometimes the cell can't control comes in, but that's also beyond what we're going to be talking about. And so on every slide of an organelle, I wanted to include a microscope picture. So this is what the cell membrane looks like under a microscope. So these are two cells. So this is one cell right here at the bottom, and this is also one cell here at the top. So as you can see, there's a cell membrane separating one cell from another cell. It's pretty small relative to the rest of the cell. So do we have any questions so far about anything I went over right now? What did you say was out of scope? Oh, my bad. So what's out of scope for this course is I'm not going to teach you about the properties of the chemical properties of the cell membrane. Yeah, because that gets into chemistry, and I'm sure most of you haven't covered the chemistry, like advanced chemistry, what you need for the cell membrane. So yeah, but this is what you should mainly know about the cell membrane. It allows some stuff to stay out and allows some stuff to come in, and it's mostly made out of fats. All right, and so the next, cytoplasm, it's the gelatin-like part of the cell that surrounds all the organelles. So when everything cells, you think of like the squishy stuff, right? So this is what makes up most of the squishy stuff. So the cytoplasm is mostly just water. So yeah, that's a trend that you'll see in biology in general. Most things are made out of water. So it holds all parts of the cell and allows sometimes even I can't pronounce this word, compartmentalization. So that's just a fancy word for saying the cell is divided into different compartments. So the nucleus is a compartment, and then the cytoplasm is a compartment, and then there are other organelles that make up different compartments of the cell. So yeah, I like this GIF. The cell's the dancing queen, and it shows that the cytoplasm is mobile. It's not thick and rigid. It's like Jello basically. So yeah, the jelly-like substance of the cell. And so another very important organelle is the nucleus. So the nucleus is essentially the brain of the cell. You could say it has the DNA. DNA is the information molecule of the cell. So everyone has different a different combination of DNA, and that makes them special. Yeah, that makes them special. Everyone, no DNA is alike unless you're an identical twin. But do we have any identical twins watching or no? That would be interesting because identical twins have identical DNA, which is pretty fun. So yeah, so just like the cell membrane, the nucleus also has its own membrane that's made out of fats. It's the exact. Sorry, I don't know. I can't talk today. The exact same fats that make up the cell membrane also make up the membrane of the nucleus. So yeah, I really like this picture because it allows you to see that the nucleus has a membrane and also has little so these channels allow stuff to come in and out. Just like with the cell membrane, some stuff can come in, some stuff can't come in, it can only stay out. And so the nucleus, so because it's essentially the brain of the cell, it controls most cell processes. So like growing and moving, all those are mostly controlled by the nucleus. So yeah, and then here's a microscope image on the top. And this is the nucleus. And so the black parts of the nucleus are the thick parts, and the white parts of the nucleus are the less compact, more spread out parts. Then here's a meme. It's not really a meme, I mean, whatever. Oh wait, do we have any questions about the nucleus or the cytoplasm? Because I know I can go somewhat fast at times. I don't want to lose you guys. Okay, if there are no more questions, I'll go on ahead with the presentation. Ribosomes. So these are molecular machines. You could say that they're machines, but obviously they're not actual machines where proteins are synthesized. So what you should know about proteins. So we know that proteins, they're important for like people who exercise a lot and people who like do bodybuilding, stuff like that. But proteins are essential for everyone because they basically run your body. And so where are proteins made? Proteins are made in ribosomes. So ribosomes themselves are made out of protein and genetic material. So the nucleus has DNA, right? And that's the information molecule of the cell. Well, the ribosomes also, they don't have DNA, but they have a sister molecule called RNA. RNA also is important for information storing and transferring information, but it's not the exact same as DNA. So yes, so it's funny. See, this is how you can see how important proteins are. The stuff that makes proteins are proteins themselves. So it's pretty important. So ribosomes, they have a large unit, a large subunit, and a small subunit, and they come together to make a full ribosome. Yeah, and this meme right here shows if organelles need protein to function, ribosomes make protein. Doesn't that make ribosome the most important? You could argue, but I mean, everything's important in the cell. It's just like a house. Every room is important in a house. If you don't have a bathroom, well, you're going to have a hard time living. So ribosomes, they can be found in the cytoplasm, like we discussed here, the water gelatin part of the cell. And they're also found in the rough ER. We'll be covering the ER after this slide, so don't worry about it. So yeah, so I included this picture right here. This is a ribosome, but it's showing the protein and the information molecules that make up the ribosome. And I just thought it was real pretty because I mean, it just looks very disorganized and messy, but this is what makes proteins. This is what makes stuff that runs your body basically. So yeah. And so this microscope right here, you see those black dots? Those are all ribosomes. So as you can see, there's a lot of ribosomes in your cells. So do we have any questions about ribosomes? Because when I was in middle school and learning ribosomes, I didn't fully understand what they were until we went over in freshman biology. Because I didn't know what proteins were, which is funny. Oh, okay. Somebody in the chat. Is the white stuff in the picture the cytoplasm? So yeah, you'd be correct, Richard. This white stuff is the cytoplasm. It just looks real grainy. That's just it. So every little grain in the cytoplasm, that's either a molecule or that's just an error, because microscopes aren't perfect and light isn't perfect either. So sometimes there's errors just in the microscope and you can't control that. Any other questions before I move on? Great. If there are no more questions, I'll go on ahead. So the next organelle is the endoplasmic reticulum, or ER for short. And so I know it sounds real fancy, but it's really not that fancy. It's just a lipid bilayer. So remember the cell membrane with this lipid bilayer right here and right here. So the endoplasmic reticulum is just it's just a tubular structure made out of a lipid bilayer. So as you can see in this picture, so these parts right here of the endoplasmic reticulum, this is lipid bilayer. So it's like a membrane, it's a membrane within the cell. And so the purpose of the endoplasmic reticulum is for what we talked about earlier, compartmentalization. So when you divide the cell into different compartments, you can store some stuff in the cell. Like for example, in the cytoplasm, there's not a lot of calcium, but in the endoplasmic reticulum, in the inside this light blue part right here, there's a lot of calcium, and that's important because if we had too much calcium in the cytoplasm, then it would become crystals and the cells would just break. And so there's a lot more stuff for compartmentalization, why it's important and all that, but that's just an example I wanted to share. And so there are two types of ER. So there's smooth ER, and that has no ribosomes, what we just talked about. So there's no ribosomes attached. And then there's rough ER with ribosomes attached throughout the endoplasmic reticulum on the outside. Yeah, so in this picture right here, you see that the rough ER has these red dots, and these red dots are ribosomes. And the smooth ER has no ribosomes. And so the endoplasmic reticulum is intimately connected with the nucleus. And I think this picture also does a good job of showing you. You see how the nucleus has the membrane right here, and then the endoplasmic reticulum runs out of it. Yeah. All right. And so if you want me to like show you more pictures so that we can better grasp how they're connected, please let me know. Because whenever I was first learning this, I didn't make the connect. Like it was hard for me to understand how are the nucleus and ER connected. It doesn't make any sense. So yeah, this picture also shows you how they're connected. So anytime you see a membrane layer in biology, it's usually a lipid bilayer. So that's why the cell membrane is so important. There's not only is the cell membrane going over all the cell, there's also spaces within the cell that have the lipid bilayer, and that's important for keeping some stuff in, keeping some stuff out, and that's important for the cell to survive. If there were no membranes or lipid bilayers in the cell couldn't survive. It would just die. Right? So is everyone good on like how the ER and the nucleus are connected and like what a lipid bilayer looks like? Because if not, I can draw whiteboard to make it more clear. All right. If no one has any questions about the lipid bilayer or nucleus or the ER, I'll go on ahead. And so the functions of the ER, I think you should know these. So the rough ER, okay, this is kind of a lie. The rough ER itself, since it's just a lipid bilayer, it doesn't synthesize proteins, but the ribosomes on the ER synthesize proteins. And so the smooth ER, synthesizes lipids. So you know that you see the lipids, okay, lipids are just a fancy word for fats. So you see these yellow lipids right here and the red lipids right here. These are special fat molecules because a regular fat molecule doesn't look like that. So the way a fat molecule goes from just being a regular fat molecule to being a special membrane lipid for the plasma membrane is by going into the smooth ER, and on the smooth ER, there's proteins. Yeah, proteins are important. Proteins that change the structure of the fat to make it to where it can be part of the cell membrane. And there are a lot more functions, but they're not really relevant, or they're out of scope. And so this microscope image right here. So can someone tell me, since I told you what these black dots were, right? So is this rough ER or is this smooth ER? You can unmute yourself, or you can put in the chat. So is this microscope image right here? Is it smooth ER or is it rough ER? What do you think? Yes, that's right, Jessica. This is rough ER because you can see the ribosomes. So it's kind of so this ER right here, I'm sketching it out. If you can see my mouse, right here is a membrane, and the ribosomes are on top of the membrane. And so this is all ribosomes, yeah. So the rough ER has a lot of ribosomes. And so everyone's favorite organelle, the mitochondria. So obviously it's the powerhouse of the cell. Who doesn't know that? And so just like other organelles, it also has a membrane. It has an outer membrane and an inner membrane. And so the mitochondria is going to be a very important organelle in exercise science because it's where the cell's energy source, ATP, is made. So obviously, since you need energy to exercise, we're going to be covering the mitochondria in a lot more depth. Depth in the next week. We'll be covering what happens to the mitochondria. How do cells get energy? Yes. So yeah, and so the inner folds of the mitochondria, these highlighted red parts right here, these are called cristae. And you don't have to know that, but I just thought it's pretty interesting because some stuff from biology is named really weird, and this is an example. So these are cristae, the inner foldings of the inner membrane. And then so up here you can see the mitochondria with a very strong microscope. This is what a mitochondria looks like. So you see the cristae right here, the inner folds. And then this is probably just cytoplasm, maybe. I don't even know. So yeah, it's very important that you remember that a mitochondria has an inner membrane and an outer membrane. And then when you're taking your science plan, you don't see any questions about what the mitochondria is. Oh, I'm supposed to say years of academy training wasted. I guess I didn't format it right. Oh well. All right, so do we have any questions so far about anything we covered? Because I know I'm going through this, or this may be a lot of new information, or I'm going through this very fast. But actually, if you've been to other SAGE sections, this may not be new information for you. Because I know you had a biochemistry class recently, or you learned about organelles. But I just wanted to make sure everyone was on equal footing before we began. All right, if there's no more questions about any of these organelles, I'll go ahead and continue. All right. So I think this is the last organ. Yeah, okay. So this is the last organelle. This is the cytoskeleton. So really, the cytoskeleton by itself, yeah, it's the skeleton of the cell. So it's made out of proteins. So the cytoskeleton is made out of proteins. Some parts keep the cell rigid, So like you saw the dancing queen gif. So yeah, the way the cell can move is because of the cytoskeleton. If the cell didn't have the cytoskeleton, it couldn't move at all. It'd just be like a lump it'd just be like a drop of water, basically. It couldn't move. Well, I mean, okay, that's kind of bad because like water can move, but that's because of gravity, not because, water has stuff that can make itself move. So yeah, the cytoskeleton is important for moving the cell, essentially dancing. Some parts of the cytoskeleton allow the cell, so like I said, allow the cell to stretch and move, but it also allows the cell to keep rigid. So some proteins of the cytoskeleton keep the cell rigid and strong. Because you can think of it like your body. If you had no bones, if you had no skeleton, your body would just be a lump, basically, just be a lump of water. So, but that's why we have the skeleton. It keeps us rigid, and the cytoskeleton also keeps the cell rigid. But then also a very important function of the cytoskeleton is that it allows the cell to move and reorganize its other organelles. So, for example, mitochondria. So mitochondria in a cell, they're not static. The cytoskeleton can attach to mitochondria and they can move the mitochondria around the cell. And then this can be said for almost every organelle. For example, ribosomes can be moved by cytoskeleton. Yeah. And then the cytoskeleton also can attach to the cell membrane if needed. All right, are there any questions about organelles in general? Because our next part of the slideshow is not about organelles, it's about the human body. Because I know this is a lot of information, you haven't learned this before. All right, so now that you learned what every organelle looks like, I just want you to look at this big cell picture again. And now you know what most of these do. And the ones I didn't cover, that's because they're not relevant to what we're going to be studying. So a microtubule is a part of the cytoskeleton. You don't need to know that, but interesting information. Actin is also part of the cytoskeleton, but you don't need to know that. Well, I would keep in mind. Keep in mind that actin is part of the cytoskeleton. That'll be important later on when we talk about muscle. So yeah, mitochondria right here. So the rough ER right here has a bunch of ribosomes. And the smooth ER right here, there's no ribosomes. There's a plasma membrane, pretty basic. Nucleus, right? So I'll go on ahead. So here's a question for you guys. Which organelles do you think muscle cells have a lot of and why? I kind of spoiled the answer with actin. But what other organelles are important or do you think are important for muscle to properly function? So you can unmute and tell me, or you can just put in the chat. I'll give you some more time because I know this can be hard to answer. But these are what these are for. These are for discussion. Because discussion is also how you learn. The questions and discussion, very important for learning. Ribosomes because they produce protein. Okay, Sophie, you are right. Yes, so muscle cells have a lot of proteins in them. And so there's going to be a bunch of ribosomes because proteins come from ribosomes. Yeah, you're right. Ribosomes again. All right. Any other organelles you think are very important, especially important for muscle cells? And remember, muscles move our body. So what do you think they need a lot of besides ribosomes? And if you don't know, that's fine, because I mean, these are difficult questions. If you just learned the content, I wouldn't expect anyone to know, but these are just for discussion. So I'll go ahead and tell you the answer. So another organelle that's very important for muscle is the cytoskeleton. You're going to learn why. It's not very intuitive at first, why you think you need a lot of cytoskeleton for the muscle. But when we go over exercise physiology in 2 weeks, you'll see why. It's very, very important for muscle. Mitochondria are also very important for muscle cells because that's where energy comes from, ATP. We'll be talking about ATP a lot in the next week. But for now, all you need to know is that ATP equals energy. That's all you need to know for right now. So endoplasmic reticulum, yes, this is also very important for muscle, and it's not intuitive either, but you'll see why when we talk about physiology in 2 weeks. Ribosomes, which you guys guessed correctly, very important for making proteins. Proteins run muscle cells. Nucleus, I mean, you need a nucleus to survive, but it's not terribly important for, okay, I said that wrong, but compared to other organelles, it's not, ooh, nucleus is doing all this. Cytoplasm, cytoplasm, it's cytoplasm, doesn't matter. Okay, take that back. It does matter, but it's not like, ooh, it's doing flashy stuff. Cell membrane, it's the cell membrane, like, I don't know. You could consider it important or not. It's not, like it plays a role, but it's not the spotlight. The spotlight of muscle cells are the mitochondria and the cytoskeleton. That's the main spotlight of muscle cells. All right. And so we're going to talk a little bit, just a tiny bit about the human body. And so this is what you should know. A group of cells work together to make a tissue. So an example of a tissue would be muscle tissue. Yeah. So whenever we have a bunch of cells that work together and have a common function, that makes up a tissue. And so when you have multiple different tissues, that together makes up an organ. So yeah, this is a pretty good example. So atom, molecule, macromolecule, you don't have to know what these are. If you haven't covered chemistry, I don't expect you to know what these are. So yeah, but these make up an organelle, like the mitochondria right here. And so organelles altogether make up a cell, which we just talked about. And so cells together make up a tissue. So we have multiple tissues together, we get an organ. And so for this example, this would be the stomach. Your stomach is an organ made out of lots of different tissues. Your stomach is not just one. It's not homogeneous. There's a lot of different tissues in your stomach because there's a lot of functions of your stomach. Multiple organs working together make an organ system. So from this example here, we see the liver, the stomach, the small intestine, and the large intestine are all working together as part of your digestive system. Yeah. And so when you have multiple organ systems working together, that makes an organism, like a human. This is an important concept that you should know. The cells make up tissues, tissues make up organs, organs make up organ systems make up an organism. Any questions? All right, y'all are pretty smart. Y'all are catching on pretty quick. And so the body systems we're going to be studying in this class are muscular, obviously muscular system made out of muscles. And so muscles are important they move the bones to allow the whole body to move. So, moving, you need muscles. Skeletal, so those are obviously bones, tendons, cartilage, ligaments, and they support the body. So yeah, they're the skeleton. They support the body and allow movement and keep us rigid. If we didn't have a skeletal system, we'd just be lumps of water, basically. The respiratory system, And so that's made out of lungs, trachea, and other breathing tubes. So, you know, your lungs in your chest, how you breathe in, you feel the air into your lungs and stuff. And so that's important for gas exchange. So you take in oxygen and you get rid of carbon dioxide. So another system we'll be studying is circulatory. So it's made out of your heart, your blood vessels and blood. And so roughly speaking, you can say the circulatory system is important for delivering materials to where the body needs them. For example, sugar. Yes, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Sugar enters your blood and is sent to muscles because muscles need sugar for energy. Another body system is the nervous system, and that's your brain, spinal cord, and nerve. Excuse me for a second, I'll be right back. Sorry for the interruption. I'm so sorry for that. It's taken care of. All right, the nervous system, sorry. So yes, brain, spinal cord, and the nerves, and the nervous system is important for moving your, if you didn't have a nervous system, you couldn't move because your nervous system tells your muscles to move, among many other things. Oh, sorry. Let me change this so you can better see it. So this is an organ guessing game. So I want you to guess what this is. You can tell me in the chat or you can unmute and tell me. Muscle. Okay, Richard, you are right. This is actually muscle tissue. So yeah, did you think muscle would look like that? I didn't. Whenever I learned, I didn't think it would look like that. Pretty interesting. Sorry. Okay, I'm so sorry about that. Oh, kind of spoiled. All right. So what do you think this middle picture is? So we know it's not muscle, but is it brain? Is it lungs? Is it tendon or is it a bone? What do you think this is? Bones? That is incorrect, Eleanor. I'm sorry. I could see why you think it looked like bones, but here's a hint. There's a lot of air. All this white stuff is empty space, it's air. Yes, good job. This is indeed lungs. So yeah, this is very unintuitive. I didn't think lungs would look like this either. But it has a lot of empty space, a lot of for air, for breathing in and breathing out. So last, what do you think this is a picture of right here? Is it so we know it's not muscle, we know it's not lungs. Is it the brain? Is it a tendon or is it a bone? Brain? No, sorry, Jenny, this isn't the brain. I can see why you think it would be brain. Here's a hint. There's a lot of cells packed together and it's very rigid. Yep, it's bones. You're right, Jenny. This is bones. And so, yeah. So yeah, this middle space right here is blood. So yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if you guys knew this or not, but there's actually blood in your bones. So yeah, so as you know, bones are very rigid, so that's why all the cells are packed together. And so here's some key takeaways I want you to remember from this session. It says our body is made out of cells, which are mostly water. So remember that that's the recurring theme. Most things in biology are made out of water. I think our bodies are like, what, 70% water? And cells are like 90% water, I think. So our cells have many organs called organelles that play unique functions. As we discussed with all these organelles, they all have their own functions. And without one of them, the whole cell would probably break apart. It would die. So the hierarchy of life. So cells make up a tissue, tissues make up an organ, organs make up an organ system, and organ systems make up an organism. That's also very important. I want you guys to remember that. And so here's just a general theme. Structure and function are connected at all hierarchy levels. So that means, so basically that's saying the structure of something is important for the function of something. So for example, right here, so the structure of bones, you see that it's very compact. That's because of its function. The function of bones is to keep us rigid. And so we need something compact to keep us rigid. The function of lung, oh, there's a chat question. What are those black dots on the bone picture? So the black dots in this bone picture, oh, sorry, are actually pockets of air where the cells live. Yeah. Whenever we learn about physiology, I'll discuss how bones are like at the cell level. And so, yeah, I was saying with structure and function are related. So the function of lungs is to do gas exchange, like take in oxygen and get rid of carbon dioxide. And so having a lot of empty spaces accomplishes this goal. And so muscle, it's a lot less clear how this helps you do a function, but actually, since they're all parallel to one another, like this, they can all do one movement. So like, for example, flexion, all those muscles are aligned parallel to one another, so that way they can all do this, that they can all flex. So yes, that's a very important topic in anatomy and physiology in general. Structure and function are connected. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed, and to finish off today's lesson, we'll be doing a Kahoot, since I know y'all love Kahoots. So I'll go ahead and go here. We're going to play. Change guest, classic. All right, so if you don't know how to play Kahoot, you want to go to kahoot.it. This is the website you want to go to. And then press enter. And then it'll ask you for a game pin, and the game pin is right here, 9712417. I'll go ahead and put it in the chat. Thank you. I love Brave, but it's very privacy. It does a good job of keeping you safe. I'll say that. So yeah, enjoy the Amoeba Sisters video while we're waiting for people to come in. So you have any questions about Kahoot or how to access the Kahoot, just tell me and I'll make sure that you're getting. So yeah, this Amoeba Sisters video is just a review of what we learned. But I mean, I love Amoeba Sisters. And in that, they never get boring. Oh, oops, did I kick someone on accident? I'm sorry if I did do that. I didn't mean to. Right, we have about half the people in here. Amoeba Sisters. Oh yeah. I don't know. I expect you guys to know what Amoeba Sisters were. So Amoeba Sisters is a YouTube channel. They cover biology. and they're great. They have great videos. They're easy to understand. It's what I use to study biology. Even at the advanced level, it's a very good resource. It's a YouTube channel. Oh, I know the channel. So yeah. So we didn't cover prokaryotes versus eukaryotes. That's not very important for exercise because I mean humans, we're not bacteria. I was asking if the channel was in the background. Yeah, there's a video, Amoeba Sisters video playing right now. So we have about half the people in here. So I'll go ahead and begin. How much time? Yeah, I'll go ahead and begin. We have 8 minutes. So the nucleus is connected by membrane to what organelle? Do you guys remember? Oh, wow, okay. This was a pretty tough question. So I'll go ahead and review it real quick. So remember the ER. So the nucleus you see right here has a membrane right here and it's connected to the ER, like directly connected to it. And here's also another picture. It shows the nucleus membrane is connected directly to the ER membrane. And that's, it'll be important to know for cell biology. I mean, you could say that the nucleus obviously is right next to the cytoplasm, but it's not connected by a membrane to the cytoplasm. True or false? So yeah, some of these are real easy. Some of these are kind of hard. All right, good job. Most of you said that was true, so that's right. Cells are mostly water. Even with all the organelles we discussed, the cytoplasm is almost completely water, and the cytoplasm makes up most of the cells in almost every single cell. Right? What is not found in the cell membrane? Yep, all the everything listed here is part of the cell membrane. So yeah, sugars. So sugars are actually part of the cell membrane. They play a role in, you call sugars like an ID tag of the cell. It allows the cell to identify itself, basically. But that's more of the immune system, and we won't be covering that. But it's really interesting if you want to look into it yourself. Sugars, yeah. So yeah, all of these are found at the cell membrane. There's a lot of stuff at the cell membrane. So how many membranes does a mitochondria have? So remember, I told you this is very important to know. You need to know for the next session. You should know how many membranes a mitochondria has. It's important when we talk about energy. So yes, a mitochondria has 2 membranes. So I'll look at that slide again. So right here, you see the mitochondria. It has an inner membrane with these folds and has an outer membrane. So just please remember that. That's very important for when we discuss energy. Right? Which body system is needed for breathing? So yeah, this is a trick question. All 3 of these are important for breathing. Obviously, you need a respiratory system for the lungs to allow the air to enter your lungs. But also the nervous system is important for breathing because the signals to start inhaling and to exhale, they come from your brain, and that's part of your nervous system. But then also the muscular is important for respiratory system because the muscles are what actually moves your diaphragm, which allows you to breathe. And so without your muscles, you couldn't breathe. So yeah, the only wrong option here was integumentary. That's just a fancy word for skin. And directly, you don't need your skin to breathe because we're not frogs. We don't breathe through our skin. So true or false? The smallest unit of life is a cell. All right, good job. Most of you got that right. The smallest unit of life is indeed a cell. There's nothing smaller than a cell that we can consider alive. All right, good job, Anonymous. You're on fire, according to Kahoot. Oh, so yeah, the inner folds of the mitochondria are called, do you remember what they are? This is our trick question. Well, not a trick question, it's just a hard question. This will be important. So the mitochondria in general will be important for our next session. So I want you guys to know this. So yes, they're called cristae, the inner folds of the inner membrane. So these right here, you see these highlighted red right here, these are called cristae. And don't worry, we'll review the mitochondria next week when we discuss energy. So yeah, gyri and sulci are actually part of the brain, and mannose 6-phosphate is a type of sugar. So ribosomes, where can ribosomes be found? Yeah, all of these are correct answer. Well, except cytoskeleton. Oh, well, that may be. So the cytoskeleton can move ribosomes, so I'm actually wrong. Everything here is correct. So obviously we saw ribosomes are attached to the rough ER. There are ribosomes in the mitochondria actually, and there are ribosomes just free floating in the cytoplasm. Was someone talking? Did you need something? Oh no. I'm saved. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. We're just finishing this Kahoot game. All right, good job. Awuga Hajib. And good job, dot dot dot. You're on fire. True or false? A brain cell is an organ. Is this true or is this false? Remember the hierarchy of life. Yep, this is false. A brain cell is a cell. Cells make up tissues. Tissues make up an organ. Organs make up an organ system, and organ systems make up an organism. A brain cell by itself is just a cell. It's not an organ. All right, we have one last question, and this one is double points because it's extra hard. So remember, the cristae are the inner folds of the inner membrane. What do you think the purpose is? I don't expect you to know this, but this is just, it's interesting discussion. Oh, wow, most of you got this right. Increased surface area inside the mitochondria. That is correct. So here's a fun math lesson. The least surface area is a perfect sphere that has the least surface area. So these inner folds increase the surface area, so that way there's more contact points. And we'll see why surface area is important next week for when we talk about energy production. So yeah, the cristae do not have the DNA and they don't move proteins. They directly didn't move proteins. That's the cytoskeleton's purpose. All right, let's see who won. All right, good job, Chlorox. Got third. Good job, ... You got second. And who got first? Oh, great job, guys. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I can't wait to see you all next week when we talk about energy systems. All right. I hope you all enjoyed, and remember, if you have any questions, feel free to ask before I end the Zoom meeting.